Hi, Liz. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, it's so great to be here, and I can't wait to talk about everything SWAT team and design collaborative. You guys have been amazing.
Oh, I love hearing that. That's so great. So, hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Karika. I am the Evaluation and Engagement Manager for the Community Design Collaborative. And today I am joined with the amazing Liz Hefner, who is a member of the Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission. And we're going to have just a little conversation about how the mission and the collaborative came together to work together in collaboration. So, Liz, please tell us about your organization, Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission, its mission, and the community you serve.
Absolutely. So, Sunday Breakfast has been serving men and women experiencing homelessness for 142 years here in Philadelphia. We were founded by some prominent Philadelphians, John Wanamaker, John Stetson, cowboy hat guy. So, long history with our city. We are now the Philadelphia's largest men's emergency shelter. So we have 250 beds on site in our facility at 13th and Vine. We also are the only provider of 3 meals a day, 7 days a week to anybody in need. So we're serving on a typical day, granted we're not in typical times, but on a typical day, we're serving anywhere from 500 to 700 meals a day.
Wow, that's amazing. So, how did you learn about the collaborative?
So I discovered the collaborative through a great friend of mine who's an architect and an architectural designer in a firm based out in the burbs. And she went to the bowling ball and said how amazing the collaborative was and asked if I'd ever heard of them and passed me your contact info on the website. And I said, no, I don't know anything about the collaborative. And then the following week, I was at a food access collaborative meeting, and Heidi from the collaborative was presenting about their work in sacred spaces and that evolution of their project. And everything kind of the stars aligned, and I was like, I need to reach out. I need to touch base. And so I met with Heidi from the collaborative on site. We did a tour of our site, and we started a conversation around a bigger project of creating a public space, kind of pocket park in the alleyway adjacent to our building. So that conversation dates back to the fall of 2019. And then when COVID struck with its heavy blow, Heidi and I we were still in touch, and she reached out with the idea of a SWAT team to help us have a quick intervention to help serve our guests who are experiencing homelessness and count on Sunday Breakfast to be there for them.
Awesome, that's amazing. Um, so, your organization was the first to work with one of the collaborative SWAT teams. What design solutions were you in need of at the time?
So we had some key areas that we were really concerned about for our guests. So two of the areas had to do with queuing up and lining up for services. So as we started implementing physical distancing to create space between our guests, we realized that we had to also create spaces for people to line up to receive services because there was a longer wait time. We had to deliver things a little bit more slowly with greater separation. And so how to do that in a way that was engaging, creative, and not just a taped X on the ground. We wanted to elevate it because we really believe that our guests deserve a 21st century 5-star experience while they're living and engaged with us as their home. So those were two key areas. First, for dine-in services, people who live with us and are staying in our emergency shelter or transitional housing program, and also for the public as they come to get to-go meals to pick something up. They may be experiencing some kind of food insecurity. We don't ask questions, we just provide the food for them. So making sure that they can line up and wait for their exchange to kind of pick up their to-go meal was important to us. And then inside our facility, we also recognized some key areas. So one thing was our dining room was a place that was quickly becoming a hub of activity for our guests to spend their entire day. As the city's kind of been locked down and services have been reduced overall, people experiencing homelessness don't have places to go or things to do. So really allowing, creating our dining room and transforming it into an engaging space where people want to spend time. It was a gray box that wasn't the most inviting. It was very functional, but not the most engaging and inviting, and we wanted to elevate that. The other had to do with our baggage storage area and process around how guests drop off and collect their items throughout the day and as they check in for their beds in the evening. Again, we were really concerned about social distancing and keeping those physical separations, but also efficiency and trying to really elevate that space as well.
Yeah, what you're saying raises a really, I think, important part of what has been happening during this pandemic, which is to shelter in place assumes that you have a shelter. So the work that you all are doing is very important. Thank you for sharing that. So of what the SWAT team suggested, what has Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission implemented so far from their suggestions, and how did those suggestions impact the community you were serving?
So we broke up suggestions into sort of a two-phase approach for us, what we could immediately implement and what needed a little bit more time. So in terms of immediately implementing, we have totally transformed the interior of our building. So we've painted walls, we've added artwork, we've added sort of pops of color and engaging signs and graphics to really liven up those spaces. So our interior looks nothing like it used to, but it feels so much more like home, and is much more a space where you want to live, you want to be, it feels more like your living room and less like a big gray box that's purely about function.
Yeah.
And same with our dining room, our cage area. We've upgraded what those spaces look like. The other thing that we've implemented as part of the design is sort of a color coding system of areas so that we carry, for anyone who's dining in, we're carrying this theme of blue through the entranceway into our building, through the walls, through our painting, so that you kind of get a sense intuitively of this is where I belong, this is where I'm supposed to be, this is the direction I'm supposed to be in. And then we've also ordered some wayfinding signs. So we added a window decal that's going to be at the corner of 13th and Pearl Streets to help our guests know how to navigate and where to go. And then we also took the recommendation to do some decals, some ground decals, to help with social distancing, keeping that 6-foot separation, but doing it in a way that's color coded so that people again can reference. So our big window decal says basically green is to go, blue is dine in. So those decals have embrace that color structure so that they don't say on each decal what they're for, but again, you understand intuitively what that's about. So we've instituted decals. Those are ordered. We're hoping to have them installed late this week or early next week, so just a few weeks after the project's conclusion. And then we are 99% done with our interior spaces. So again, our aim is by Friday, this Friday the 22nd, that we will be fully completed and implemented with 100% of what was recommended. And that's really just a testimony to the SWAT team's thoughtful approach and making sure that they kept implementation in mind. They didn't give us grand ideas that we couldn't easily source and execute. I will say that the other thing making the implementation possible is the generosity of our supporters. So as this crisis has continued, we've been able to reach out to our community and say, this is how we're serving. Will you come alongside us? Will you support us? Will you make sure that every guest has a place to call home during this crisis? And they've been answering with a resounding yes. So their financial support has really allowed us to make these shifts and implement in a quick and decisive way.
Oh, that's so good to hear, especially given what's going on right now in the world, to know that we are still coming together and, doing this work um, intentionally. It's so important. Thank you for that. So what was the most helpful, beneficial aspect or takeaway from your engagement with the collaborative SWAT team?
So I think it was the thoughtful conversations we were able to have. So it wasn't about the mission presenting a problem and the SWAT team throwing an answer back at us. It really was a thoughtful, engaged process where we were having conversations. And even for us, we thought, we thought we had issues around our cage that were going to be really significant, but it was just quick suggestions of really how we utilize some of the doorways and spaces we already had. And it was more about process and less about structure. And we hadn't had the space to kind of think through it in that perspective. But that was really only made possible or apparent to us through the collaborative process, the collaborative nature of bringing designers together with us as sort of a client, to have a conversation that wasn't monetized. I think that's the other side, is that for us, whenever we're engaging with a level of professional in the design space, their time is money. And so we tend to jump to functional, like let's get to our solution as quickly as we can. And with the SWAT team, we were able to kind of pull that out of the way and remove that barrier and have a really engaged conversation with incredibly talented and thoughtful architects, designers, construction, just every kind of sector was brought together in a way that really created a holistic team that helped us walk through this.
Yeah, yeah, that's so important. Diversification in all things helps, doesn't
Yes.
it? Yeah. Awesome. So how do you think the collaborative may be of value to the mission in the future?
We have big plans. So one of the things that we struggle with, like I think so many organizations
Mhm.
that have a physical footprint that's sort of deeply rooted in Philadelphia, is how to best use our space in an evolving world. We've been in our building since 72. We haven't made many changes to it since 72. But the way we serve our guests have radically changed. And so we really see the opportunity for this evaluation process to continue to assess what's the best way to utilize our spaces to have the best impact for our guests and have the most meaningful engagement of them while they're staying with us. So that idea of 21st century 5-star extends to evaluating, do we need to move our guest entrance? What door do they use? Do we need to add laundry services, and where might we do that? What does adding a pocket park on Pearl Street look like to the space where our guests are entering for those dine-in services? So this constant questioning and evaluation and design process is something that we see in our future, and we know that the design collaborative can come alongside us and walk through that with a level of expertise that we wouldn't be able to experience on our own. One, we couldn't afford to pay for, and two, that may not have the insightful eye to how to approach it in a way that kind of reflects the diversity of projects the collaborative has worked on. Um, knowing the breadth of projects and the passion for making Philadelphia a really amazing space, and a place um, where it's not just about functionality.
Yeah. Yeah, agreed. Agreed. So as we've been mentioning, and as we're currently still in this pandemic, are there other issues you're dealing with now from COVID that you may need the SWAT team's experience on, or would the collaborative's expertise be able to help you in future projects beyond COVID, maybe?
Yes to both. I think that like the questions that we're facing are constantly evolving as we respond to COVID, because the needs of our guests are constantly evolving. So I think, part of it now is thoughtful to sort of the next levels and spaces in our building. So as we think about our shelter space and where our guests are sleeping, because that's another area where they're spending a lot of their time, what do those spaces look like, and how do we make sure that they are just as thoughtfully um, curated and engaged for them, but also keeping their safety and health in mind? How do we continue to implement those strategies and elevate them? I think moving forward into our future, I think we're always going to be cognizant of this. I think everyone's personal bubble might have just gotten a bit bigger. And so really thinking about how do we thoughtfully engage our community of residents and our neighborhood, because we're in a neighborhood, residential area adjacent to the Center City District, next to a high school, Roman Catholic. Um, how do we thoughtfully engage our neighbors to make sure that every time we're making these design decisions, we're not doing it without their insight, without their input, that we're hearing their voice? And how do we do that in this world? How do we do this in this current situation, but even once we're kind of over the peak, once we hit our peak and we're on the other side of the curve? So yes, we look to a long partnership with the collaborative, um, because we really see it as an asset and a team that can only help us serve our guests in the best possible way. Um, we wouldn't be able to elevate our work to lift our guests out of poverty that extends beyond just resources of the financial resources, really lifting them out of that poverty of culture, of art, of experience, into and elevate them and empower them to know their own value and worth. And the collaborative is a key partner in helping us do that by improving our physical spaces, by improving the way that we use them, and the way that we serve our guests.
Yeah, I appreciate the human centeredness of what you're saying and how you're making sure to keep your guests and their health and ability and overall like goodness and thinking in one place. So that's super important, and it's very important to keep in the middle, in the center of our work as we get bounced around by all the things that are happening. Thank you so much, Liz. Could you tell us where we can find more information about Sunday Breakfast Rescue Mission?
Absolutely. Sundaybreakfast.org. That's our website. You can also find us on social media at Philly Homeless. So that's Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. You can see us on social and see the most up to date of what's happening. So at Philly Homeless or sundaybreakfast.org.
Thank you so much, Liz.
Thanks.